Welcome to the Rock the Stage Show. Each week, international media expert 𝗘𝗺 Bontrager has in-depth and personal conversations with celebrities, top leaders, authors, speakers, and media professionals. Now, from the Rock the Stage studios, here's your host, the Trigger, 𝗘𝗺 Bontrager.
Happy Thanksgiving and welcome to the holiday edition, the holiday special of Rock the Stage Show. I'm 𝗘𝗺 Bontrager, the Trigger, and I hope you're enjoying Thanksgiving, relaxing with friends and family, having great food, and everything that goes all with it. Most of us are with friends and family, enjoying a really good time. So we're going to share some of our friends and family here on a very special edition of Rock the Stage tonight. We picked out two of our guests from earlier this year that have actionable content. Their content was so jam-packed, we could not relive it all. You can do that by watching the full edition. But we are going to bring in two guests and share some of the best of what they had to offer through both of their show appearances. I hope you find it fun, entertaining, and maybe helps you out. So we're going to start back in February 4th of 2024. Lisa Patrick was my guest, and Lisa spends her days as a growth strategist helping executives, founders, celebrities, influencers, and speakers build and scale their personal brands and business brands while increasing the market relevancy. And of course, with that, their profits. She's also known as the 𝗘𝗺, a catalyst for innovation and disruption, and the queen of persistence. We want to make sure that we get that in there as well. We go jump back into our discussion once again, and we're talking with Lisa about how she first found her greatness. What was her superpower and how she come upon it? And this conversation, this show was called Leveraging the Emotional Connection of Your Brand with Lisa Patrick. So let's jump back in once again. Here is Lisa Patrick on Rock the Stage Show. So when did you find your greatness? How did you stumble upon, I know branding, I know people, let's get it together?
You know what? That's a very great question that it's interesting because I struggled for many years trying to figure out really what was my market differentiator, right? Because, you know, we're the kitchen sink, and this happens all the time with my clients, right? You're the kitchen sink to everything, but you are to nothing, right? And so how do you describe that and articulate that in the marketplace? And so I had coaches because we can never see the tree through the forest, right? And so the problem is that I can see everybody else's brand. I can see their greatness. I understand what their unique value is in the market. I understand how to present it. But I couldn't do it for myself. And so I had to hire coaches to help me through that. And I still do to this day. I have 5 different coaches. So it's very important.
And we share a good friend, coach, mentor, Jim Cathcart.
We do.
And we talk about this all the time is no matter what level you are, the best of the best always have a coach. Michael Jordan.
And interestingly enough, Jim and I wrote the book together, Intelligent Curiosity, right?
So, I wonder if you're going to drop that in somehow.
Yeah, of course. Done. I mean, I wouldn't be good at building and monetizing my brand if I didn't, right?
but you're so right about that. We don't think about, because we're the coaches, we're the experts, but who do the experts go to maintain that they keep going up? Because you have to stay above the curve because it's ever changing. Yeah. Is that hard for you to change the coaching hat expert that you are and become the student?
No, not at all. Because I have a deep thirst for knowledge, right? And again, truthfully, I'm always looking at how can I better myself. I'll be honest, and I'm telling everybody here, I hate the word expert. I hate the word guru. And the reason I hate expert is because then it's definitive that I don't have anything else to learn. And I'm always learning. I'm learning through my clients' mistakes. I'm learning through my own mistakes, right? And that's just a natural progression. And so expert says that put your mark in the sand and this is it. And this is who I am. And I'm so great. And I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I understand why the market needs to have the word. I just don't like the word.
So I also love a phrase that brand and business is a people sport. You've turned this into, because I come out of sports broadcasting. I love sports. I eat, drink, and sleep. So the idea you've made this into a sport, it makes it sound fun. Is it fun?
Oh, yeah. So I had a close friend, this is several years ago, personal friend, not a business relationship, who said, don't you have any fun? And I looked at her and went, every single damn day. Oh, sorry. Can I swear? Like, business is fun. That is my source of entertainment. I love breaking apart business. I love watching, I had a call with somebody recently that's a mutual friend of ours, and just to hear in her voice the excitement around, oh my God, she got some clarity in her business and what she wanted to do, right? That's fun for me. Like, but just because that's not her idea, this friend of mine's idea of business is fun. It should be fun. And if it's not, then you're doing something wrong.
Yes. No, I tell people, if I'm not having fun, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
I will check out, I will back away. And every day this is new fun. It is amazing what you learn from other people while you're coaching, while you're consulting. And it's amazing what in the moment, those light bulb moments that you thought you were going to talk about this, but the conversation takes you here. And all of a sudden it's like, here's the genius. We found it.
Well, I was working with a celebrity last year, and one of the things that we talked a lot about, and this happens lots in the celebrity entertainment industry, is that they're really good at what they do. They have a lane, they're great in front of the camera, they're great in the movies, they're great on stage performing. But the problem is they have all this reach, and when I worked in the speaking world, you wanted all this reach in the marketplace, and you had stage presence and you had reach in the room, but not offline. And so what happens is that now they've got all this reach, but they're not monetizing it in the right way because somebody hasn't come along to teach them, well, listen, when you have X amount of Facebook followers or TikTok followers, how are you getting them off the platforms, right? How are you building those relationships offline to actually serve and upserve them in unique and different ways? And that's monetization, right?
And that's probably the biggest hiccup for people, because I'm sure we've had the same conversation. We could almost say word for word, I have all this content. I've worked so hard. I love what I get to do. I love the people I work with, but I'm not making it financially. They don't know how to make that turn.
Yeah.
The profit. What's some of the biggest barriers on that? What keeps us?
Yeah, lack of knowledge of, and it's not so much that it's not business sense, because I think they have business sense. I think it's lack of knowledge and understanding, and more specifically, trust. Who do I trust that's not going to take advantage of my brand? Because their brand is them, right? They are the brand. Yeah. There's no question about it. Not take advantage of it, but build it properly. And I think there's a lot of experts out there who say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do this, right? But they don't actually build the foundation. And that's the biggest, if I implore anyone, is if you understand the foundation of the business from a monetization and the technology of the business of what you're building, you can go anywhere. But you've got to be able to build that foundation, because you'll have leaky faucets everywhere and you'll be losing money in all sorts of places.
That's great advice, because again, coming out of the pandemic, coming out of a rough 2023, the number one question I've had from people is, what can I do? I've lost all my confidence because I'm not making the money. It's not scaling like I wanted to. And their confidence is shot. And they're wondering if everything they build is completely wrong, but it's really not built wrong. It's just they don't know how to monetize it.
Well, and I think it is to a certain degree, at least in my experience. So I'm not going to speak on behalf of everybody else, but in my experience, usually built wrong, right? So what's happened is somebody's built, like we're talking online brand presence right now, right? They've built a really great website, but the website's not speaking to everybody else. It's not functioning properly. It's beautiful.
Look, your brand is not about you. It's about the people you serve. And I think people do overall think the brand is about me.
Yeah.
Clarify what you just said. I think it's a gold nugget.
I think that, we hear it all the time. It's not about you. It's about your audience, right? But the reality is that when they start to get into the weeds of the actual execution of what they're doing, it's retraining your brain to think, it's not I, it is really about them. And when you understand the message in the market and how you're articulating that, to actually serve to somebody. There's nothing that drives me more crazy. Here's an example. You're listening to somebody on social media, and the first thing they say is, hello, everyone. Well, I'm sorry, there is one person on the other side of this. There is not an audience of people. And you've just wasted the first 3 seconds by saying hello to everyone. Gone. Right?
We have to repeat that over and over again. People do not understand. It's not mass media. It's
isn't
personal media that goes to the masses,
Yes.
and people do not understand
It's about relationship with the person on the other side of the phone. How are you gaining their attention individually, not as a collective, right? Yeah, you're on Facebook as a collective, but you're talking to one person at a time. So it is about what is their problem? How are you talking to them? Like, I get very passionate about it because it drives me crazy. And
me too.
lots of times I'll see really great experts, really great people who have all this bravura, this great brilliance, all these experiences, but they're talking to the masses and they've lost the attention of the person on the other side of the phone.
That was the first thing they taught us in Broadcasting 101. It's mass media, but you have to talk to one person, and it's multiplies by one, by one, by one. But if you talk with I'm glad you're here today. You start using those words instead of hi, y'all. It's a game changer.
It is a game changer. And I think the reality is that now I feel and remember that it is our job as experts, and we're all experts, by the way.
Right. Yes.
We all have experiences. Like, there might be 1,000 professional speakers, right? There might be 1,000 management consultants. There might be 1,000 plumbers, for God's sakes. But it is the collection of your experiences and your wisdom that makes you unique in the market, and how you show up as you in the market. Nobody else can change that. That is you collectively. And so when you present that in the market, people are gravitated towards you, and that is your differentiator. That's why I wrote the book, The Distinction Factor, right? Teaching people how to really understand what makes you you, because that's what you need to sell in the marketplace, and people forget that's branding.
So again, now we're back to the uniqueness. I opened up the show talking about uniqueness. People are afraid to stand in their uniqueness because they think it's geeky, it's awkward, and instead
it feels clumsy. It feels clumsy, right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't feel clumsy. And good. I'm glad it does. I have a client right now who, was struggling with coming out into the market to talk about a very dear topic to her that made her very vulnerable in the marketplace, quite honestly, and was afraid of what other people were going to think. Well, the reality is you should never care about what other people think, as hard as that is. And you are going to feel clumsy, and it's going to feel awkward, and you are vulnerable. But what is the worst thing that could happen to you? Somebody says you suck on Facebook. Who cares?
Who cares? Delete.
Big deal. Great. Thank you. At least you know me now. Great. Let's move on. Right? Like, you have to be willing to be vulnerable, because that's how people get to know you, and that's why they're coming to you, because of you've been there and you've done it, and it's where they want to be, and they want to look to you to lead on how you're going to do that for them.
Well, and because they come with their own insecurities, their own doubts, their own questions.
Oh my God, I'm insecure every single day. I mean, I was nervous coming on this show, right? Like, I had a great mentor, and you know who she is, Patricia 𝗘𝗺.
Yeah.
And, she's nervous every time. And I mean, this is a woman who has blazed trails public speaking. And if she's nervous every time, then I guess I'm okay that I'm nervous too.
Well, and that's where people are looking for authentic people they can relate to. They don't want the superhero. They don't want the bullet bouncing person. They want someone that can say,
and more so now,
I can help you.
Yeah, more so now than at any other time in the market. Here's the other big thing, 𝗘𝗺, and I know that you know this: strategy. So this is so, like, I have done more strategic work in the last 6 months than anything else, because you have to understand, why are you doing that video? What is the purpose behind that video? How does it fit in your strategy? And strategy is different than execution. And people are very tactical, but people don't be strategic about it, right? And so you have to think about, how are you going to win in the market? What's the strategy? And then complement the execution plan accordingly.
And that's a huge one, because the strategy is, some people think about their content calendar. Yes, great.
And
But
that's execution.
Right. So that's what they're thinking, though. But it's really the story, the message. I coach a lot of people on episodic. So do a coaching video, leave them hanging, make them come back for another one, make them come back for another. The episodic side of coaching is very intentional, very strategic. But instead you get a lot of one-offs, and it's like just popcorn going everywhere. You need to be strategic to have them stick with you.
100%. Yeah, the execution piece of it, you're absolutely right, Trigger, has to be strategic, right? You have to run them. You have to understand why you're doing what you're doing to the end goal. What's the end goal? And then reverse engineer it, right? But the reality is that those are all tactical execution pieces in trying to grow, right, your brand, whether it's business or personal, doesn't really matter. But what is the strategy? What is the thing that the reason that you're doing everything that you're doing, not just financial goals, right? But actual, why is the market going to perceive you this way? And what assumptions are we going to make about the market that our execution plan is going to teach us? And then we're going to adapt accordingly. And that's project road mapping. And that's what I think makes me different in the market, is when I think about marketing and branding, I build a project roadmap that makes sense based on the goals, right? And it's a collective. It's not just one. I'm not just going to do content and put it in the market and be spaghetti against the wall, because that's what that is.
Yeah.
That's the reality. It's spaghetti against the wall, and you hope that it sticks. It's not going to in today's marketplace. Sorry.
Well, and that whole strategy then tie in the customer journey, but you have to know your customer, know who you're going to serve, why you're going to serve them.
Yeah.
So that strategy, everything you're talking about, it's got to also be, I'm going to take my customers on a journey to get them the results, which also turns into the revenue side. But if you don't do that, it's just chaotic for everybody.
Well, then and the reality is that you might know who your customer is and then find out that wasn't your customer at all, right? And so now you have to start to think about, I have a huge male following base. I don't have a lot of females in my following, right?
I'm actually the other way, which is very interesting.
So it's interesting, right? So, but if I was thinking not too long ago, I was thinking about, I have this handbag in mind that I want to create. Like, my mind goes all over the place. Anyways. And I'm like, I'm going to create this handbag and I'm going to push it into the marketplace. But when I looked at my analytics and I looked at the strategy, because the handbag is the execution piece of it, I went, wait a minute. My message has to be, hey, gentlemen, do you want to buy your wife a really great handbag? Not, hey, ladies, look I got a great handbag that's unique in the marketplace. Right. Very different. If you do not understand the strategy behind what you're doing and why you're doing it and the analytics of your audience, it's no point.
That's bullseye again, because we may think, but we do. I mean, the analytics, the research, the emails, pay attention to the emails, who they're coming into, and learn how to fit that all in together.
And by the way, you don't have to have 20,000 followers or 200,000 followers to start to determine some of those patterns.
Yes.
Right. To observe your audience accordingly.
So before I let you go here today, I do want to flip to the side of, what are a couple of tips to help people not destroy their brand, hurt their brand? What are some no-fly zones or dangers that we need to be aware of?
Well, I'm going to get ostracized for this, but politics. We all have a political opinion. I have a political opinion. I don't ever talk politics online.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I see a lot of people do it. And that's a choice in your brand, right? So if you choose that you are going to have bold statements, nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but you have to be prepared and strategic about how you're going to respond to those and what your brand voice in the market is going to be, and consistent with it, right? So if you were a very polarizing, and I follow a few people who are extremely polarizing, great individuals, don't always some of them I'm like, ooh, can't believe you just said that, but okay, right? But they're intentional and strategic about why they're doing what they're doing, and their voice behind that brand. So I think you have to, if you're going to be that person, then you need to always show up that way, and you need to find the courage to handle the backlash of it, and that you're okay with that.
And don't backlash with anger. You just need to be your guy, stay in that lane, stay in that voice, and deflect and go on. Because if you come back with anger, everyone's going to go, I can tick them off all the time.
Yeah, I would agree. I think sometimes, somebody told me once, wait 24 hours if something pisses you off. Wait 24 hours before you respond, because now you're going to respond from an emotion rather than from a logical. And you need to, business is personal. It is about people. It is about the relationships. But
so there it is. Business and relationship are so important. And that's where we're going to stop our discussion with Lisa right now. The discussion goes on much further into many more details and a lot of actionable tips that you can use right now and help you in 2025. The full episode link will be in the descriptions. Make sure to check it out, and I'm sure that you're going to be glad you did. Now we're going to jump to the May 17th of 2024 and a feature we did with another great female leader, Janet M. Harvey. Now this was May 17th, and Janet inspires company leaders to seize opportunities that arise from challenging situations and sustain excellence. She's the person who transforms what many perceive as a negative traits and circumstances into positive opportunities to fulfill the utmost needs. Janet is a CEO, award-winning author, speaker, thought leader, and a personal coach. So let's jump back into our conversation with Janet, talking about her company and how she is all about change. Not just the name of her company is about that. She's personally all about change and how exciting that it can be. Here is Janet M. Harvey and the episode that we entitled Unspoken Tension of Leadership. We hope you enjoy.
Yeah. So you are a coach, a speaker, and you speak on this idea of change, but you also have a company that's called Invite Change. So you're all about change. Tell me about Invite Change. How did you even come up with that name?
When I left corporate life and began being an entrepreneur, the first company was Manchester Consulting Group because I wasn't very creative. It was just a thing I was doing. And I got so busy that I finally decided maybe I ought to do something a little more structured. So I built a company called Clarity International because challenging is about producing clarity. Sounded good enough to me, and off we went. And about 8 years into that experience, I found myself on airplanes 6 out of 7 days a week. And one day I said, I don't think I'm very happy. I don't like this anymore. I love the work I'm doing with the customers. I don't love the way I've structured the company. Yeah. So my partners bought me out. Awesome. I took a year off. And in that year, I did some traveling, and my husband and I relocated from the East Coast to the West Coast. And I thought long and hard about what's the thing that's been common in my life from the very beginning. And it was change. And I realized that I love change. I love the grand adventure of life. And I thought, what if maybe that's what my coaching is all about? That I'm providing a place for people to learn to invite into their lives change that will be more fulfilling, more satisfying, help them get to their big destination, the thing they're longing for, the aspirational dream in their lives. And it's both a call to action and it's a full sentence. And it happens to be the name of our company.
I love that. And Invite Change. Now, that takes me to my leadership. I speak on leadership as well sometimes, but one of the things I talk about is, and I firmly believe this, one of the teachings is that leaders either learn to change, adapt, or die. Do you agree or disagree?
I think that they already know how to change. So what we are doing is unlayering all the things that say, keep it the same, repeatable, consistent, the status quo. And unfortunately, the environment around them doesn't stay static. So rather than learning to change, it's about remembering we know how to change and to do it deliberately on our terms with all the capability we develop as leaders.
So you write about that in your book, Change, Lessons from 2021. But you ask a question in this: when is the last time you boldly changed the status quo? You actually put it in the book saying, check yourself. When was the last time you intentionally did it? How do people respond to that?
The third time I had a CEO call me and say, my team comes to me and says, you make their head hurt. I finally decided I better pay attention to this and figure out, how do I answer this question? Because the first time I laughed, and the second time I went, what meaning did you make of that as a good coach, right? I asked a question back. And the third time I said, you know what, I'm going to interview your team and find out why they think I make their head hurt. And it has to do with this question you're asking.
Yeah.
You know, I think one of the possibilities that is in front of us as the complexity and uncertainty of the business environment continues to grow is for leaders to realize that the identity that they built, encouraged from school to first job to every step on their career path, be smarter than anybody else, be well prepared, learn to be proactive, be an expert in your work, be right, doesn't leave any room for change. Yeah. It actually inhibits change. What's on the top 10 list for CEOs? Every year for the now 35 years I've been in professional life, innovation and creativity. Learning somewhere usually in the 10 as well.
Yeah.
Because we've built a system for repeatability, not for innovation. And we see those as either or, rather than recognizing they are like the two strands of DNA. And when we can hold both, now change becomes natural. It's part of the flow.
So when you get into this with your public speaking and coaching, you're poking the bear of tension. You're intentionally saying, we've got to talk about the thing we don't want to talk about, the tension of change, and admitting you've got to accept this, right? You're intentionally saying we have to talk about this. How do they respond?
Right. You know, one of the things that's so important in any coaching relationship, whether it's one-on-one or one-on-many with a team, is building the trust for vulnerability. And, you know, a couple of great thinkers out there, Amy Edmondson and Tim Clark, are writing about psychological safety. That's a familiar concept, I would imagine. The challenge is that's rearview mirror. Like, it's not safe to say, I don't know. It's not safe to push on the CEO's favorite project and say, we're going down the wrong road, right? It's not safe to do that, so we don't. That's the culture now inhibiting the organization. As a CFO once said to me, you cannot cost cut your way to growth. It doesn't work.
I love that.
Another example of that, right? So, you know, I think what we get stuck on sometimes is how people perceive us as a priority over what does our authentic self recognize? How do we use our expertise to paint a new picture, as opposed to getting stuck behind our expertise as this is the swim lane I'm in? Human beings are so much more than the thing we can acquire. And that's what we mean by maximize potential, right? We're tapping into the part of the self that somehow we sidelined. We parked them on the bench when we went out to play our sport, right?
Yes.
And it's like, no, off the bench, back in the game. Let's bring the whole self in here now. Same thing, two strands of the DNA. Our left brain, rational, concrete, sequential self, and our right brain, creative, intuitive, instinctive selves are far better partnership for producing results.
Years ago, I had a consultant come in with a different organization I was running, and with my leadership team for a weekend retreat. And they are doing some of the things you're talking about. But we also took the personality test to find out how we all play together. Well, me and one other of my leaders both came out mathematically identical, same keywords, same everything. And when they did the big reveal, they said, this is going to work gloriously or painfully, because the two of you are going to fill the same vacuum, and there can only be one person to make the final decision when you face those challenges. 3.5 years later, that tension bubbled over.
Yeah.
Why do leaders not recognize? It's great to have like-minded people, but you do need differences on your team. You need a variety pack. Otherwise, you will collide like that, won't you? The tension will bubble up.
Oh boy, now you've unpacked a big Pandora's box.
That's what I do for a living.
And I have a couple points of view. You're not surprised, right? First of all, your personality is construction. You learned to behave in your life in a way that worked. You got rewarded for it from very young all the way through to wherever you are when you take this test and it says, this is your personality. But I'm here to tell you, Rich, it is not who you are. It's just one thing you've constructed. There's so much more than that. Okay?
Yep.
So even though the two of you had the same data, you are not the same.
You found out.
You are not the same people. So there's way more diversity by definition in every single team than an assessment report will ever show. I'm much more interested in understanding what motivates each leader on the team to express themselves the way they do. How is the system influencing them? How is their culture influencing them? How is their life journey? Did you live in lots of different places in the world, or have you never left Des Moines, Iowa? That influences the belief system. It also embeds certain patterns, habit, preference, assumption, and bias operating unconsciously, because that's what our brain likes to do. We like the ease of habit. It's energy conservation. But again, as we were talking about a little earlier, everything around us is changing. So if I'm caught in habit, I'm going to be less productive and more and more and more less productive as time goes on. If I don't wake up and recognize, oh, I'm feeling a little bit of tension here. I wonder what the heck that is. And then here's the thing. How many years have we heard conflict management?
Yes. Which I hate that term, by the way. Personally, I hate that term.
And what's evoking the hate?
Because me like you, I enjoy at some level the fact we do need to wrestle. To get to the next level, you do have to wrestle, even with your own team, to get to where you really want to get to.
Yeah. So when we harness that wrestling, because it tells us something is asking to be changed, now it's an adventure, right? Now everybody can bring their creative juices to it. Unfortunately, we have trained a whole lot of leaders to believe that they need to keep things on the even keel, right? Not too much variability from the water level. We don't want any big waves. It's too hard to manage predictability in our results. And in the process, we have snuffed out the smaller voices that have a creative idea. And we've given great energy to the ones who say, nothing's going to change. So, we're underperforming to potential in all organizations because we've decided that predictability and consistency is king. So the shift is, when tension shows up, what's the truth of the tension? What's the evidence that suggests that the way we've always done it is no longer producing as satisfying a result? It doesn't have to be complete breakdown and failure. Yes, of course, we have those things that we're navigating. But if we can pay attention to the moment when we feel tension, it holds the seed of innovation. And if we can get curious, then that seed gets sprouted. And then the organization knows what to do with it. But it's the avoidance of the tension that keeps them from optimizing.
So now you're setting me up. Now you're getting me going. So I think today we have a lack of strong leaders. I don't think we have the leaders that you're describing. I don't think we have the people that are willing to knock on the door of danger, of risk, of let's go mix things up. Let's shoot for the back fence and swing big. I think we do have what you were describing, the stable, the predictable leaders. How much that lack of risk-taking leaders is hurting us right now across the world, across the globe, here in America? Why don't we have those visionary risk takers leading the way you're describing?
Why don't we?
So like, have we really been put into a box that much? Have we been trained that much, schooled that much, that we've lost the sense of follow me, let's take the hill.
Okay. When's the last time you listened to an analyst call for a public company?
It's been a while.
Okay. Put it in your memory bank.
Mhm.
You know that the questions are, will you meet the earnings forecast?
Yep.
What are you doing to manage risk? Here are 3 things going on in your industry that we think are going to put you in trouble. What are you doing about them?
Mhm.
Right? So we've just said you will be rewarded on your ability to deliver on your promise, even when the unexpected shows up, and you better have a good answer for us.
Mhm.
And then the unexpected happens that even the reporters didn't come up with, and a curveball comes in called COVID. Or a curveball comes in like pirates in the Suez Canal and that blows up the supply chain, right?
Mhm.
We could go on and on. Cascading crises in the world. Leaders have never been trained to be agile, generative, regenerative, any of those fancy terms. They've been trained to be consistent, reliable, trustworthy, and they cause their organizations a lot of pain in the process, because if you're off plan, everything else stops. Everything you're investing in strategically to move the organization, to meet the market, all of these things I'm talking about that feel so aspirational come to a screeching halt. And we cut staff, right? Big reduction in force going on in tech right now.
Yes.
Come on, folks. It is the future. You're going to need that workforce. But they have to do it because they're rewarded in the stock market by meeting forecast. It's a short-term view in a long-term business, and it's creating the ups and downs way bigger. They're not getting this. It's the irony. Strong.
There are those of us, and I'll put me in this camp right now, that we want to move fast. And sometimes you need to move fast. Sometimes you don't need to move fast. But I'm a person that's like, if I can see the vision, if I can see it, I have to lead that direction. But I sometimes lead too hard, too fast. They can go with me, but my speed of movement is not where they're at. Can you help us with that a little bit? How can we make good decisions as leaders and not leave them 4 miles behind us?
Yeah, it's an excellent point. And it has to do with the objective. If the first objective is to see the aspirational dream on the horizon and cast a compelling vision, right? Senior leaders are very good at that. It's the only way they get to be a senior leader, is that they can tell a really good story of a big enough dream that we all want to go to it. And then the role changes. To be a really good change leader, you have to stay on message and you have to stay curious. So instead of telling the story, now the leader becomes a listener. What action are you compelled to take from the talk we just had about the vision of the future? 30 days later, what's lingering with you that excites you about the future that we've been talking about? What are you moving with this in your team? What are you noticing with them is activating their excitement and energy? Where do you see it landing a little flat? We ought to be energizing it a little bit more. So the role of the CEO is, as change leader, to listen deeply into the organization and keep feeding it. It's not to go on to the next new strategy. Yes, you got to be able to chew gum and walk at the same time. But I think that there aren't enough people who realize that you have to build awareness and desire before you can get to the operationalized side of that change process. And too many senior leaders set the bag down.
Wow.
As in the tool bag.
No, that is so good, because asking the questions, keeping the conversation, they want to feel included in the adventure.
That's
And
right.
often, sometimes visionary leaders, we go after the vision and assume they're in the boat with us and they've already got it. But we are 3 miles down the road, and we do have to remember, wait, I have to go back and bring them with me.
That's right.
And that's a challenge of visionaries leaders. That's a challenge people that do want to lead. And I think you're right. Some people have gotten caught up in that. And instead of leading with vision now, they're afraid to speak any vision,
Right.
because they've lost their team before. So now they just don't come out and say anything, do they?
Right. other than to complain that their team doesn't take enough initiative.
So
And there you have it. Again, we're going to stop there because there's much, much more that you can get out of that episode with Janet. Go into our show notes. There'll be a link there that you can go back and find these very easily. Of course, search out the title, The Unspoken Tension of Leadership with Janet M. Harvey. Thanks to Lisa Patrick, again, to being highlighted and featured here with Janet. And we're going to do this at Christmas once again. We're going to do a best of, but not just 2 of our guests. 3 of our guests will be on our other holiday edition as we bring some of the very best of Rock the Stage and some of our dearest and deepest conversation. We thank you for being a part of Rock the Stage. We thank you for being every week, adding your comments, your questions, and even sometimes leading us on some of the great people to interview and bring right here. We really do appreciate that you're a part of this. And I do want to send out a special thanks to our celebrity wrangler on this holiday season weekend here, Robert Stack. He has done a marvelous job of upskilling our guests, having us widen out some of our conversation. And it's just been a pleasure to work with him. Also, special thanks to Sandra D. Robinson, as she's also brought in some of the Hollywood celebrity guests that we featured earlier this year as well. I hope you're having a great Thanksgiving. I hope it's a marvelous weekend for you. And we'll see you next week, 7 p.m. Eastern time, as we do each and every week, for another edition of Rock the Stage Show. Have a great weekend. Have fun, everybody.